Yes, welcome back. Well, Australian and New Zealand airlines have joined forces accusing the country's private airports of basically price gouging. A new report released today has found airport privatisation is leading to higher costs for both airlines and passengers and infrastructure that isn't always fit for purpose. Former regulator and A4ANZ chairman Graham Samuel is calling for greater regulation of the sector. He joins me from Melbourne. Graham, it's very nice to see you there. I spoke to you just when you'd been made chair, and you couldn't say very much, but this is quite a report.
Well, we spent a lot of time working on it, Tiki. We engaged Frontier Economics to provide some expert advice that was independent of anything that had previously been done by the ACCC. We've engaged a senior legal firm, Johnson Winter and Slattery, to assist us on the legal processes, and then we've come to our conclusions. Now, what the report says is this: we've got 151 airports in Australia. Each and every one of those airports are monopolists. It won't surprise you that I don't like monopolists, never have, never will. And there's a good reason, because monopolists only act in their own interests. They never act in the interests of their customers. They don't act in the interests of the public at large. They don't have to, because they're not answerable, they're not accountable. And the only thing that will pull monopolists into line will be two things: either the threat of competition. Now, in airports, in 151 airports, there is no threat of competition, and there won't be for the foreseeable future, maybe for decades. And then the only other thing that will pull them into line is the threat of regulation. Yeah. And that threat of regulation has never really been there, but worse still, in November last year, with amendments to the Competition Act, any threat of regulation was removed entirely. And there is no way now that the ACCC can step in to stop monopolists gouging, providing deficient services to their customers, disregarding the public. They do what they like. They really say to everyone that deals with them, take it or leave it, but in fact you can't leave it because you've got to land here. That's where your passengers want to land, so therefore take it.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because this report is quite damning, really, of airport behaviour. Essentially what you're saying is you're talking about customers on the one hand, passengers on the one hand, and airlines on the other. And really that the profits have been made, but the standards and the expectations haven't gone up as profits have gone up.
Well, they've had extraordinary increases in profits. This has been revealed in terms of the four major airports, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, by the ACCC's monitoring process that's been going since the beginning of this century. It's a monitoring process which the ACCC said while I was chair, said while now Rod Sims is chair, that it's a fairly useless exercise because it doesn't achieve anything. All it does is it provides some transparency. It says car park charges are too high. We all know that. It says that aeronautical charges and profits are too high. Well, anyone that's watching the airports knows that, and what would you expect to be otherwise when they are monopolies? That's how monopolies operate. It says that the standards of service are just okay. Well, we all know that. You walk down the concourse past the areas where the airports achieve rental returns, which is the shops, go into the bathrooms, and you and I know the standard of quality of service that's offered to the public is poor.
There's two sides to this. There's the airline side, the air side, and there's the land side. If we look at the land side first, how do you regulate for the price of a bottle of water, or the fact that my Chardonnay is $4 more than it should be, or indeed some of the quality elements that you're talking about?
Well, it's very difficult indeed, but given that these are terminals that are operated by the airports, then what we've got to do is to start focusing on the basic costs that are involved, the rental charges, for example, for the retail operators. Now, would you believe that the rental rates at some of our airports in Australia are higher than Westfield's rental rates at its shopping centres?
Yes,
I can
believe that. Well, you can, because as you say, that's... But how do they compare, for example, to other airports around the world?
If we take two of those that we're dealing with in both Australia and in New Zealand, because of course Air New Zealand is involved in this collaboration, Auckland and Sydney airports are the highest profitability airports in the world. In some cases they are over double the level of profitability than some of the airports in the world which are subject to competition. That's the important element, subject to competition.
Could the airports come back and say, well, we're making these profits because we are extremely efficient?
Oh, yes. Well, I can tell you that in parts of the negotiations that occur, the efficiency or the inefficiency soon becomes obvious. Our airline partners that are part of this collaboration have demonstrated over and over again that they can, for example, undertake capital expenditure at a far more efficient rate than the airports suggest to them as part of the negotiations. But let's face it, monopolists are rarely efficient. They don't have to be. You know, they know they can charge whatever they like, they can provide whatever level of service that they like, and ultimately, you know, the customers have to pay because they've got no choice.